All right, mad scientists, tonight we are going to learn about the scientific revolution. So the big question is, how did a revolution in science change everything we know about everything? Before this period, scientific knowledge was really based upon the works of ancient scholars, people like Aristotle of Greece and Ptolemy. Aristotle, as you see in the dates below, is very old. Ptolemy is a little more updated, but if you're talking about Europe in the 1400s, both these guys are more than 1,200 years old, yet we continue to believe what they said. They are unquestioned. If you question them, then the scientific world got mad at you because they are all-stars. Their biggest contribution to the scientific world has to do with the universe. As you see right here, and as you learned in the DBQ, this is the geocentric theory of the universe. Geo meaning earth, centric meaning center. You see the earth is in the center. Everything moves around the earth in perfect circles. The church would come to like this theory because it is very closely aligned to the Bible. And they could say that God created earth as the perfect place and everything revolves around earth. So not only is this popular in the scientific community, it's also popular because this is what the church teaches to all of its people. Now all of this will begin to change because the church has a crisis. Every year in the church calendar, there is a problem. The problem is that the calendar, which is based upon the stars and the sun, is not accurate. So every year, Easter was happening earlier and earlier in the calendar. Literally, it was in the middle of winter and Easter was taking place. So the church actually asks people in Europe to help find the reason why this was happening. One of the people who decided to help was one of its priests, a Polish guy called Nicholas Copernicus. And Copernicus uses math, he uses observation, and he studies the stars, he studies things in the universe, and using this math and observation combination, he discovers something that shocks him. Which is this, that the sun is indeed at the center of the universe and not the earth. If you go back and look at when Copernicus died, you notice that he published his book in the same year. This is not a coincidence. Copernicus had these ideas about 30 years before he died. He published his book for his friends about 12 years before he died, but he didn't actually make the book available for the public until literally he was dying because he knew that people would hate him because he was changing everything. The church especially would hate him, to the point that Martin Luther criticizes him actually before the Roman Catholic Church criticizes him. So if you can make Luther and the Pope agree on something, you know that you are special. Copernicus is one of these people. How do you think the world responded to Copernicus? Is he a hero or is he a villain? Think about this from two different perspectives. To scientists, do you think he's a hero or a villain? And then secondly, to the church, do you think he's a hero or a villain? Now, Copernicus starts all this process, but people will give Copernicus proof that he is indeed correct. This person is a guy called Tycho Brahe, and he's Danish. This is also one of the worst portraits I've ever seen. If you want a little fun fact about Tycho Brahe, he was once in a duel with swords. He was fighting this other guy. The other guy cut his nose off. So he literally lived his life with a metallic nose. Sadly, you cannot see the metallic nose in this portrait. You can just see his very small hands. I don't know if this is true or not. But back to Brahe. Brahe worked and built an observatory. So literally every night in this Danish island of his, he would stare up at the stars, and he would chart the stars every single night for more than 10 years, and he would write down where the stars were to show what's happening in the universe. So he's literally providing all this data. Now, do you think he was doing this to try to prove that Copernicus was right or that he was wrong? Now, the good thing about data is that you eventually have to analyze it. So you have to take all these statistics and make sense of them. Well, for Brahe, he died before he had a chance to do this. However, his assistant, a German called Kepler, was the person who made sense of all of this data, all of these star charts and universe charts. Kepler finds that Copernicus was mostly right. However, he had some minor corrections to make. So if you look at this diagram, you can see how Kepler changes the Copernican model. Okay? What is the main difference that you see here? And now it's time to jump on the bandwagon. If you jump on the bandwagon, this means when people all start to support something because it is trendy, it's a fad, okay, one direction. So the person who really gets this going is an Italian called Galileo Galilei, sort of a repeat of his name. He is Italian, he's a mathematician, he's a scientist, and he's very cocky, he's very arrogant. He decides to prove that Copernicus was right in the heliocentric theory, also giving support to Kepler, by taking a new instrument that he does not invent, but he improves, called the telescope, and he observes the universe. In the universe, he sees things that show that the universe is not perfect. He sees spots on the sun. Don't try this at home. He sees that there are craters on the moon. He sees that there are comets and shooting stars, and he sees that there's generally chaos in the universe. Well, this is against what Aristotle said and Ptolemy said and the church said, because they said that everything was perfect in the universe and that the stars were moved by angels moving them in perfect speeds. He sees that that's not the case. The planets are moving at different speeds for different reasons. Now the church flips out on him, and the church basically gives him an option. And they say to Galileo, look, make a book, explain the traditional theory, the geocentric theory, and explain this new theory, the heliocentric theory, but don't explain which one you think is correct. Basically present facts and then let the reader decide for himself or herself. Well, if you give Galileo this mandate, if you tell him not to do something, guess what he is going to do? Just that. So he writes the book that you see on the left called The Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems, and he explains the geocentric theory and the heliocentric theory, and then he prints a conclusion saying which one he believes is right. Now on the right, you can see that he is in trouble. This is a trial. He's brought before the Inquisition, and the church tells him they will kill him if he doesn't take back what he said. So since one of his good friends was recently killed for his scientific beliefs, Galileo chickens out, takes back everything he said, and his book is destroyed. But once the idea is out there, you can't destroy an idea. And if the church is destroying the book that contains the idea becomes more powerful. So in the end, Galileo spends the rest of his life under house arrest, but the ideas that he gave started to get more and more popular. And now for our hero, Newton. Oops, this is the wrong Newton. And now for our hero, Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, English. So he's a mathematician and a scientist. And what he does is he combines inductive and deductive reasoning. So he's combining observation with logic and theory. And to do this, he's actually proving the laws of gravity. He has one of the greatest quotes in world history, and it says, "If I've seen further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants." Well, who are the giants that he's talking about? Now, what is Newton's legacy? Oops, sorry, wrong Newton. But if you want to know Newton's legacy, it is a national championship for Auburn University and a Heisman Trophy.
Isaac Newton, I mean, you read his writings. Hair stands up on, I don't have hair there, but if I did, it would stand up on the back of my neck. You read his writings. The man was connected to the universe in ways that I've never seen another human being connected. It's kind of spooky, actually. He discovers the laws of optics, figures out that white light is composed of colors. That's kind of freaky right there. You take your colors of the rainbow, put them back together, you get white light again. That freaked out the artists of the day. How does that work? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet gives you white. The laws of optics, he discovers the laws of motion and the universal law of gravitation. Then a friend of his says, well, why do these orbits of the planets, why are they in the shape of an ellipse, sort of flattened circle? Why aren't they some other shape? And he said, I don't know. I'll get back to you. So it goes home, comes back a couple months later. Here's why. They're actually conic sections of a cone that you cut. And they said, well, how did you find this out? How did you determine this? Well, I had to invent integral and differential calculus to determine this. Then he turned 26. Then he turned 26. We've got people slogging through calculus in college just to learn what it is that Isaac Newton invented on a dare, practically. So that's my man, Isaac Newton.
So as you can see, Newton really changes everything, and the big thing that comes from this is the scientific method. So whereas in the past people believed what they were told because it was maybe logical or it was the way things have always been considered or thought, now people want to go out there and learn, and they want to test, and they want to prove things for themselves. To give you an example, in the past, everyone thought that the Earth was the center of the universe because you could look at stars rotating around the Earth. So it's either the Earth is moving or the stars are moving. Well, the Earth doesn't feel like it's moving. We would feel it. And so since we don't feel that we're moving, we just assume everything moves around us, okay? And people really understood that, and they accepted that for more than 2,000 years. There is one guy, though, who really got a bad rap, and his name is Aristarchus of Samos. He was a guy who was alive during the days of Aristotle, and he says, no, I think everything goes around the sun, and everyone laughed at him, and they shamed him because Aristotle was more popular. So they bullied this other philosopher and scientist who was actually right about 2,000 years before Copernicus was, okay? So somewhere Aristarchus of Samos is laughing because he's finally proved to be right. Changes. Okay, so how does all of this change the world? Okay, how will the scientific revolution change the way we think about the world? And then lastly, take a look at this. This is a seal, and the motto is Latin, and it's nullius in verba. I want you to research this, tell me what it means, and tell me whose motto it was and why it's important. Adios, mad scientists.